Most people think they know Iran. They think of protests, sanctions, missiles, revolution, a country frozen inside modern headlines.
But here's the thing.
That version of Iran is only the final chapter, long before the modern world feared it or judged it. This land built one of history's first great superpowers, fought Greeks and Romans, survived Arab conquest, endured Mongol slaughter, reshaped Islamic civilization,
and kept returning under new names, new dynasties, and new ideas. Persia to the outside world, Iran to itself. So here's the real question. How does a civilization lose capitals, kings, and entire empires, and still refuse to die? This is the complete history of Iran.
Iran's story begins with geography, because geography here is not background, it is destiny. The Iranian plateau, ringed by mountains, cut by deserts, open to invasion routes from Mesopotamia, Central Asia, Anatolia, and the Caucasus. It is not an easy land. Large parts are dry. Farming depends on skill, adaptation, and water control. But that same harshness created something powerful. People who learned early how to survive scarcity, guard corridors, and build culture in difficult terrain. Long before the word Iran described a modern state, human communities were already planting, building, trading across this plateau. The foundations of Iranian civilization were laid not in comfort, but under pressure. In the southwest, near the fertile plains of Khuzestan, one of the region's earliest civilizations emerged, Elam. Its capital, Susa, stood at the edge of Mesopotamia and the Iranian plateau, absorbing influences from both worlds while keeping its own identity. Elamite rulers traded, fought, built, prayed in a world already full of rival powers. At Chogha-Zanbil, they raised one of the ancient world's great sacred complexes, a massive ziggurat city that still hints at the scale of their ambition. This matters because Iran did not begin when the Persians arrived. The land was already old, already urban, already politically alive. Persia would rise later, but it would rise on foundations laid by people who came before it. Sometime in the second millennium BCE, Iranian-speaking peoples moved into the plateau from the north and the northeast. Among them, the Medes and the Persians. They brought languages, warrior traditions, and a worldview that would shape the region for centuries. Out of this world emerged Zoroastrianism, one of the ancient world's most influential religions. Centered on Ahura Mazda, truth, moral choice, and the struggle between order and chaos. Whether all early Iranians were fully Zoroastrian is debated, but the moral language of truth versus lies, light versus disorder, became deeply woven into Iranian identity. Before Iran became an empire, it became an idea.
Then came the man who changed the scale of the story, Cyrus the Great. In the 6th century BCE, he united the Medes and Persians and turned a regional power into the Achaemenid Empire. This was not just another kingdom getting bigger, it was a new model of rule. Cyrus conquered Babylon, expanded across Western Asia, and became remembered not only for military success, but for allowing subject peoples to keep their customs and sanctuaries. That reputation, even if later idealized, mattered. Iran's first great empire did not define itself purely through terror. It defined itself through control, administration, and legitimacy. The Persians had arrived, and the ancient world would never be the same.
If Cyrus founded the empire, Darius I built the machine that made it durable. Under him, the Achaemenid state was organized into satrapies, taxed systematically, linked by roads, and administered across staggering distances. The royal road tied Susa to Sardis. Couriers moved messages with a speed that impressed the ancient world. Imperial Aramaic helped administration speak across borders. And then there was Persepolis, not just a city, but a statement in stone. Reliefs of tribute bearers from many lands turned empire into ceremony. This is where Persia stops being just a conquering power and becomes a civilizational center. One that understands lasting power is not only about armies, it is about systems. In the West, Persia became famous for one reason above all others: its wars with the Greeks. Marathon, Thermopylae, Salamis, and Plataea. These battles became sacred stories in the European imagination. But here's the thing. What later Western audiences treated as the center of Persian history was, from the Persian perspective, only one front on a much larger imperial map. Persia did not collapse because a few Greek city-states survived. It remained enormous, wealthy, and dangerous. The real end came later, when Macedon, under Alexander, struck at the imperial core. In 330 BCE, Alexander destroyed the Achaemenid order and burned Persepolis. It looked like the end of Persia. It wasn't.
After Alexander's death, his empire fractured. Iran fell under Seleucid rule. Greek influence spread through courts, cities, and elites. For a moment, it seemed the plateau might be permanently folded into a Hellenistic world. But this is one of the deepest patterns in Iranian history. Conquest does not equal disappearance. From the northeast rose the Arsacids, the Parthians. They pushed past Seleucid weakness and built a new Iranian empire. They did not restore the Achaemenids exactly. They created something looser, more aristocratic, and more decentralized. But it was Iranian power again. And that matters. Even after one of history's most famous imperial collapses, the civilizational core was still alive enough to produce a comeback. The Parthians ruled for centuries, and while they remained less famous than the Achaemenids, they were one of Rome's great eastern rivals. Their cavalry became legendary, their political system less centralized than what came before, but resilient. Rome could pressure them, fight them, defeat them in places, but never absorb them. This is one reason Iran's history looks so different from many ancient societies that vanished into stronger neighbors. Under the Parthians, the Iranian world proved it could resist not only one Western invader, but the greatest Mediterranean power of the age. In the 3rd century CE, the Sasanians overthrew the Parthians and re-centralized Iranian power. This was a conscious revival. The new dynasty drew prestige from Persia's older past and built a more tightly organized imperial state. Zoroastrianism became closely tied to royal authority. Court ritual intensified. Monumental art returned with force. And once again, Iran faced the Western superpower of its age. First Rome, then Byzantium. For 4 centuries, the Sasanians remained a major imperial power. They were not a footnote. They were one of late antiquity's defining states. Yet, like so many before them, they were worn down by the very scale of their struggle. By the 7th century, the Sasanian Empire was bleeding from long wars with Byzantium. Then, a new force erupted from Arabia, Muslim armies, energized by a new faith and a new political order. The Arab conquest broke the Sasanian state and introduced Islam into Iran. This was a genuine rupture. Dynastic rule changed, religion changed, and the old elite order broke. But here's the key. The change was not instant, and it was not simple. Conversion unfolded over time. Persian-speaking populations did not vanish. Iranian identity did not vanish. Instead, the old civilization entered a dangerous, transformative phase, one that would ultimately make Iran Muslim, but not Arab. This is the part lazy histories get wrong. They treat the Arab conquest as a clean replacement. It wasn't. Yes, Arabic became the language of revelation and learning across the expanding Islamic world. Yes, Iran gradually Islamized. But Iranian administrators, landholding elites, and scholars became indispensable to the new order. Persian culture did not retreat into silence. It adapted, survived, and then expanded again. Later Muslim civilization in the East carried strong Iranian fingerprints in government, court culture, literature, and political imagination. Iran did not escape change, it redirected it. By the 9th and 10th centuries, Persian returned as a major literary language. Under Iranian dynasties, such as the Samanids, a new cultural flowering took shape. Ferdowsi gave enduring form to the Shahnameh, preserving older Iranian memory in Islamic times. Avicenna became one of the most influential philosopher-scientists of the medieval world. Persian literature did not merely survive Islam, it flourished within it. This is where Iran becomes impossible to reduce to conquest alone. Its real power is no longer just territorial, it is linguistic, artistic, and intellectual. A civilization that can lose empire and still dominate imagination is not in decline, it is changing the terms of survival. The dynasties changed again. Turkic rulers, military strongmen, and new houses from the steppe. But over and over, something remarkable happened. Conquerors entered the Iranian world and left changed by it. Persian became a language of prestige, from Iran into Central Asia, later into India and parts of Anatolia. Sufi thought, court etiquette, poetry, and bureaucratic habits traveled with it. Even towering figures associated with lands beyond modern Iran, like Rumi, wrote in Persian and belonged to this much larger Persianate world. Iran's cultural reach now exceeded its borders. The empire of armies had become an empire of language. Then came catastrophe on an almost unimaginable scale. In the 13th century, the Mongols crashed into Iran and tore through some of the most sophisticated cities of the Islamic world. Urban centers were destroyed, populations were massacred, networks of life and learning were broken. This was not just another invasion, it was civilizational trauma, and yet the old pattern returned. Once the Ilkhanate settled over Iran, Mongol rulers began to adopt Islam, rely on Persian administrators, and patronize Persian culture. The destruction was real, so was the recovery.
Iran had been shattered, but not erased.
After the Mongols came Timur, Tamerlane. Another wave of devastation swept across the plateau. Cities suffered and populations paid in blood. But the Timurid age also produced one of the great artistic revivals of the Persianate world. Herat became a center of literature, painting, and intellectual life. Miniaturists, poets, and scholars thrived. The contradiction is brutal but true. some of Iran's greatest artistic renaissances emerged after periods of overwhelming destruction. Iran could lose cities and still regenerate style, memory, and meaning. Then came the dynasty that made modern Iran imaginable, the Safavids. Beginning in 1501, they reunified much of Iran under a single rule and aggressively made Twelver or Shi'ism the core of state identity. This was not a minor theological adjustment. It was a geopolitical reset. Iran would now define itself not only as a Muslim state, but as a Shi'i one in a region dominated by Sunni powers, especially the Ottomans. If 651 changed Iran's faith, 1501 changed the form that faith would take.
Under Shah Abbas I, Safavid Iran became not just strong, but visually unforgettable. Isfahan was remade into one of the great cities of the early modern world. Vast boulevards, royal plazas, mosques, palaces, and markets. The city became architecture as statecraft. This is the part people miss when they reduce Iran to conflict. Again and again, Iranian power expressed itself not only through war, but through beauty. Tile, calligraphy, gardens, geometry, and ceremonial space. Iran was not merely surviving history, it was staging it.
The Safavids eventually declined, and later dynasties ruled a country increasingly squeezed by stronger external powers. Under the Qajars, Iran faced Russian expansion, British pressure, military weakness, and economic humiliation. Reform became unavoidable. So did resentment. In 1905 to 1911, the Constitutional Revolution tried to limit monarchical power and build a more accountable political order. That moment matters because modern viewers often miss it. The struggle over law, representation, foreign interference, and state power did not begin in 1979. It was already there, decades earlier. In the 20th century, Reza Shah Pahlavi pushed hard for centralization, modernization, and state control. Railways, a stronger army, bureaucracy, dress reforms, and secularizing measures. He wanted a stronger, more modern Iran, and he wanted it fast. In 1935, foreign governments were asked to use Iran instead of Persia. This did not erase Persia historically. It was a rebranding, a statement about how the state wanted the world to see its past. Reza Shah's son, Mohammad Reza Shah, inherited the throne during World War II. He tried to build a modern, pro-Western, and centralized state, but the central contradiction of his reign was brutal. He promised progress while ruling more and more autocratically. In 1951, Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh nationalized Iran's oil industry. 2 years later, a coup backed by the United States and United Kingdom removed him and restored the Shah's authority. After that, foreign interference and monarchy became fused in the minds of many Iranians. The Shah's White Revolution pushed aggressive modernization, but the benefits were uneven, the repression was real, and the political cost kept accumulating. By the late 1970s, the coalition against the Shah had become enormous and unstable. Clerics, students, merchants, secular critics, leftists, and ordinary citizens, they did not all want the same future. They only agreed the old system had to go. In 1978 to 1979, the revolution toppled the monarchy. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini returned from exile. The Islamic Republic was created. This was not simply a change of ruler, it was a rewriting of the state.
Iran now fused elected institutions with clerical oversight and vested ultimate authority in the doctrine of rule by the jurist, velayat-e-faqih. In other words, Iran had entered yet another civilizational phase, one that claimed both revolutionary legitimacy and sacred authority. Barely had the new state been born when Iraq invaded in 1980. The Iran-Iraq War lasted 8 years. It became one of the late 20th century's most devastating conflicts. It killed on a massive scale, militarized society, and hardened the revolutionary state. War gave the Islamic Republic what embattled regimes often gain from external attack: discipline, sacrifice, and a narrative of survival. The revolution no longer existed only as ideology. It now existed as blood memory. Once again, Iran was forced to define itself under siege. Once again, suffering became part of state identity. Modern Iran is not easy to summarize because it is not one thing. It is a revolutionary Islamic republic, but also the heir to a civilization far older than the republic itself. It is deeply religious in structure, but full of secular, nationalist, reformist, and anti-authoritarian energies. It has elections, but also unelected centers of power. It has poets in its bloodstream and security institutions at its core. In 2022, after the death of Gina Mahsa Amini in morality police custody, nationwide protests made clear the struggle over authority, freedom, women's rights, and identity is far from over. The argument over what Iran is supposed to be is still happening in real time.
So what is Iran really? It is not just Persia in the past tense, and it is not just a modern crisis on a news channel. It is one of the world's oldest continuous civilizational spaces, a land that has been invaded, broken, Islamized, Shi'ified, modernized, revolutionized, and still remains unmistakably itself. That is the real story. Not that Iran never changed, it changed constantly. The deeper miracle is that through all those transformations, something recognizable endured: language, memory, culture, and the refusal to disappear.
If you made it this far, like the video, comment with the period of Iranian history that deserves its own full documentary, share this with someone who still thinks Iran's story began in 1979, and subscribe for more cinematic history. And for the next chapter in the Story of Nations, watch the entire history of Germany in 15 minutes on the end screen or through the link in the description.